Palladium fans, we're back with another of the Secret History of the Defilers, which is what I introduced it correctly on the final episode. That's what I think I'm calling this series. And we're here at the end of the Defilers campaign. Now, how long was the Defiler campaign?
3.5 years. And
26 players.
We played every Saturday without fail for those 3.5 years. And the typical game session was 10 to 15 hours long.
Oh my gosh, Kevin. That's really more like 7 years of regular gaming time. So this is it. The Defilers versus Hell. Here we are. Now you've mentioned in some of our episodes about a sword, but I think we should go back and start with the sword story.
Yeah. I wanted to go and find it in my old notes, and I just did not have time to do that. And so what it was is I came up with this really cool idea for what I thought would be an epic adventure. And I created this amazing rune sword that one of the main characters, one of the main heroes of the Defilers, Feanor, got in adventure session number 3. I mean, very early in the campaign, he gets this awesome sword. And in fact, this is him, and that's the sword, this blue-black rune sword. And
hold on, you got to hold it back up a little bit, Kevin. We couldn't see it.
Oh, I'm sorry, you couldn't see it.
Yeah,
I can't see it because of the way him.
There we go.
I'm sorry, guys. And I mean, you can see he's levitating. I mean, that's an aspect of the sword. And so he got the sword early on, and I set it up so that under certain circumstances, the sword would grow in power, and hopefully as it grew in power and started manifesting new abilities, the wielder would realize, oh, this thing is dangerous. It could be something bad. And so first of all, somehow they avoided all those scenarios that would get it kind of activated. And so they figured out that it did, really great damage, like 3d6 plus 4 or 6 damage. They realized it was indestructible, and they used it, to pin open doors, or if something was, trying to close on them, or, a pit, a trap and something was coming down and they needed to wedge something in there, the sword. And of course, the sword was this badass thing that, could mow down people, and, it wasn't, but, it wasn't super powerful because it starts out pretty benign.
Yeah.
And 3 years go by, and I'm thinking, well, that whole story scenario, that whole outline is just never going to unfold. And that's okay. It's cool. And we've had lots of magnificent adventures. And then things start to happen. The Defilers go into this different dimension, and they're fighting demons alongside with the samurai trolls and the ninja orcs. And it was just really great, this adventure. And they start fighting demons. And as they're fighting demons, new things are starting to happen with this sword. Like he's fighting these demons and stuff. And there's some point where this big, horrible, the leader of this demon horde just leaps at the guy who has the sword, the character of the sword. And he rolls great. He impales this villain, this demon lord, or greater demon anyways. And the sword sucks it into it, body and soul. And they're like, this is awesome, which it was. I mean, it was pretty, they weren't expecting that.
Yeah.
And it was pretty awesome. And they're like, holy shit. And he's like, Kev, can I suck in another one? And he's like, yep. And he starts, sucking in the soul of these demons. And they're good guys. And they're thinking, well, these are evil incarnate. So
right.
It's not a bad thing. Right. And after he does like 3 or 4 of those, there's a voice in his head. And it's the sword talking to him telepathically. And he's like, well, this is cool too. It never spoke to me before. They always kind of assumed it was a lesser rune weapon. And they're like, and he's like, this is great. And at first the voice is really helpful. It's like, you should watch out for this. Don't trust that guy, kind of thing. And then it starts to go into show no mercy, kill him. If you let him live, it'll only lead to trouble. They'll seek revenge. I know these kind of beings, kind of thing. And it's like, okay, that's all right. Shut up. And I'm trying to give them all these hints of stuff. Like there's a point, because the sword just becomes more and more powerful and starts to give him more and more power. Like he's now, I think, has like a natural AR. Now he has more hit points, or the sword can heal him, and stuff like that. And he can levitate now. And there's like all these powers. I had like 13 different things, and each one, in my mind, represented a power level of the sword. But also in my mind, and as I tried to represent to these guys, like there's a point where he's fighting with stuff and he throws the sword at somebody, and the sword like stops in midair and starts to fight all on its own, just kind of bobbing around. And again, they're all like, this is awesome. Yep. And I'm like, yes, it's awesome. But, and the sword's like, you take the guys in the front, I'll watch your back, kind of thing. And it's like, okay, but you don't kill anyone without my say so. And it's like, sure, of course, master. And it's fighting, and they're fighting, and the Defilers are all doing their thing. And at some point, the sword sucks in a couple of people, and he's like, I said you're not supposed to kill anyone. He goes, well, they're not truly dead, master, because they're in the sword.
Yeah, they're existing,
right? And not one of the 26 Defilers say, I don't know, maybe we should be careful. This thing is getting awfully powerful. But no, they're like, yeah, just relax. So what? He sucked in those 2 guys. They were bad. The one guy was just about to kill you from behind, attack you from behind, and this other one had a little child that we're trying to rescue, and it's fine. It's fine. So they're in a situation where they I forget exactly what they had to do, but I think part of it is they were getting cocky. They were all, at this point, like you said, we played for 3.5 years, but we played so many hours. It really was like the equivalent of a 7-year campaign. So, in fact, at some point before they go into hell, they one of the guys, as a group, they kind of asked me, so Kev, we're all 9th to 11th level. And I'm like, yes. And they're like, and we're some of the most powerful people in the world, right? And I'm like, yes. They're like, so why are we always getting our butts kicked? and I'm like, well, it's simple. It's that reputation thing. Reputation kind of cuts both ways.
Yeah.
So while they were famous, and I do mean famous heroes, like the whole, at this era of the Palladium history, everyone in the world has at least heard of the Defilers and some of their exploits. But I mean, they've spent, because time is weird and they would disappear for large periods of time. So first of all, one of the rumors was that they were immortal. They had for Pete's sake, they had a second level god with them, because he did get the second level. They had all kinds of crazy weird beings. They had a cybernaut, they had a Sasquatch. They had what became like the Pope of the Church of Narabium, this forgotten god, which is now being worshipped, certainly all over the northern wilderness and Eastern Territory, and word has trickled down into Timoro, and the Defilers went everywhere. So I mean, they established a church and a shrine of Narabium in the land of the South Winds, because they were really great role players, and they really got into their mission. So I mean, they are renowned, and there's still these young virile guys all in their early late 20s, early 30s. But they have 50 years of history.
Yeah.
And so I said, look, when a bad guy says, I have a big plan, the Western Empire says we're going to invade Timoro, or we're going to mess with the politics here, and we're going to assassinate this guy, or do this or do that, or find this ancient sacred magic item that will give us true power over. The next thing someone says is, what about the Defilers? And, the megalomaniacal villain's going to say, what about the Defilers?
That's right.
And their advisor is going to say, well, that's not going to sit well with them. They're going to join forces with the people we're, trying to conquer, or they're going to do this, or they're going to try to prevent us from getting that item, or they're going to want to get the item. So what are we going to do about them? Well, we got to take them out first, right? Eliminate the problem before they realize what we're even up to. And then they have this reputation. So yeah, little flunkies, little first level, second, fifth level characters are all like, the Defilers, don't hurt me. We're sorry. We stole this. Here, we're giving it back to Farmer Bob. And what's that? Give them another 100 gold? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because they're the Defilers, and they're going to, crush them like the bugs they are. But, the more powerful beings, no, and they're going to send out the assassins and the spies. And let's not forget about, just prior to this, they still have their mouse network, spy network, which, no one knows about. But, the Defilers somehow seem to know all kinds of stuff. So I'm like, this is why you're getting your butts kicked. And because you guys are so powerful, and it's 26 powerful guys who are all 9th and 2 11th level.
Yeah.
And a second level god. This is why, bad things happen, and really powerful, godlings and demigods and gods and demon lords are, seeking you guys out and causing problems. So anyways, I think some villain might have gotten protection from one of the Lords of Hell or something, and the Defilers wanted to go in and go after him. And there was some other, and this guy was like, it might have even been the Rakshasa had done something, and they were like, that's it, we're sick and tired of this guy. Because I love Game Master hint or suggestion. I love returning villains.
Yes, 100%.
And that's partly from my comic book days, but I mean, also there's a lot of great stuff. Come on, Darth Vader. Who didn't want to see more Darth Vader? Mm-hmm. When Darth Maul got knocked off in the second episode so early, people are like, oh, shucks. We want to see so much more of Darth Maul. Especially certain characters, like in the old Dallas TV show, everyone loved to hate J.R. Ewing. In Walking Dead, we all love to hate Negan.
Yeah.
And the governor, and we want to see what's going on with them. And, so it's like great villains, and I'm good at great villains. So that was one of the things that I didn't really realize. But Eric Wojcik came up to me one day and said, "Yeah, Kev, you just make the best villains ever. No one can touch you." I'm like, "Well, Stan Lee, I don't even think Stan Lee." And I'm like, "Whoa."
Hold on.
That's my inspiration and one of my key sources of how to make a good villain. But I look at a lot of different things. And so anyways, the group's going into hell, I think, to once and for all kill the Rakshasa. And at this point, I don't think they realize yet that he's actually one of the lords of hell. They know he's a big shot. They know he's a greater demon. But so they're going in because they're sick of this guy, because he's just messes with them every time and they're going into hell. And at this point, because of the reputation, they're like gods and demons and stuff going, "Oh, this is cool. They're never going to survive." And of course, the Joker steps up and goes, "Hey, guys, I'll take that bet. What are you willing to bet?" Because he's going to make a fortune if the Defilers actually survive. And if they don't, he doesn't care, because he just loves the gambling.
Right.
And he already owns a ton of stuff. So it's like, yeah, this isn't going to hurt him. This is really fun. And this will be one of those legendary, memorable things that lords and gods are going to talk about. So the Defilers are going to hell. Well, actually, they're kind of debating it, because some of the Defilers are actually going, "I don't know if that's a good idea. Going into hell itself, to going into Hades. I mean, sure, we can kick ass and stuff." And of course, the sword. And I'm thinking, here it is. Finally, they'll get the message. The sword is like, now it's actually talking to all of them. It like rises up into the air, and it's like, "No, we should go into hell." And he's got all these reasons. The sword's got all these reasons why, and he's playing on their emotions of like, "Do you want that Rakshasa to constantly? He thinks you're fools. He thinks you're just fools, and you're even foolish to go into hell. But you should go, because no one's going to expect that. He won't know you're coming for him, and he deserves to die. You know what kind of evil? I know this Rakshasa. You know all the evil things he's done, and who knows what he's been planning, and all this kind of stuff." And the group's like, "Oh, that's a good point." Plus, we hate this guy.
Right.
So, the sword's also making promises like, "Don't worry, I'll help protect you. And I know the fastest secret ways into hell, and in hell, in Hades. I can get you this and that, and we can avoid all this stuff. I know Hades inside and out." Hint, people. How does a sword know the ins and outs of Hades? How? Why? And I think someone even did the mind mage in a group, I think even did or one of the mages, "Can I cast a spell on this to tell if the sword is telling the truth?" And I'm like, sure, yes. He knows all the ins and outs of Hades. And there's this big debate about, I don't know if it's a good idea. I think it's a bad idea. And finally, it's like, yeah, okay, let's go.
All right. And so this is how you saw your campaign ending.
Well, I have to admit, I was surprised that they were going. I always try to give my players an out. I don't like to kill people if they're going into the jaws of death. I want them to know it.
Yeah.
So that they know they're willingly making the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Or that there's some alternative, there's some way around it, something that's going to come up. And there were all these points where they could have turned back, but they don't. And of course, the sword's kind of egging them on. And it quickly gets to a point where I'm thinking, holy moly, they've hit the point of no return. They either need to turn back now or this is how it's going to end. They're all going to die. And they keep on going. And the next thing they know is the forces of Hades and the forces of heaven are working together to stop them. And at this point, they go, oh, shucks, maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe we should have turned back those 5 chances Kevin gave us to turn around. And at this point, you've got angels and demons appearing to stop them. And the Defilers would have stopped. I mean, when the angels came down and Angel Gabriel was there, my Catholic upbringing kind of popped in there.
Oh, yeah.
Angel Gabriel shows up and he's like, you must go back. And of course, a bunch of the good alignment Defilers are going, well, maybe we don't understand what we're doing, what's at stake here. Maybe we should turn back. We should turn back. And the sword says, no, there's no turning back. Me and my minions will crush the Lord of Hades, and there's no stopping me now. And everyone who ever opposed me, this is the sword speaking, will suffer my wrath, in heaven and in hell, kind of thing. And the Defiler's like, oh shit. And meanwhile, the guy who's been using the sword this whole time can't control it anymore. And one of the powers that had shown up before is that it could possess others. And so the group is like, well, hey, man, control your sword. And he's like, I am the sword, kind of thing. And they're like, oh, shit. And Angel Gabriel is here and he's summoning the skies or whatever. And yeah. And the sword, and I don't want to identify what the sword is, because if I write the story of the Defilers, you're almost getting too much now. The sword possesses one of the guys who have level 5 tech, which is basically mechanoid human technology. So he's got a particle beam rifle. And I have the player roll. I said, so you're possessed, and he's shooting the particle beam at Angel Gabriel. The guy rolls a natural 20. So the Angel Gabriel just disintegrates before their eyes. He's just vaporized. Whoosh! And there's just this, it was hilarious because there's this audible from the whole group, 26 guys all go at once. And the looks on their faces, and they're like, well, we knock out so-and-so, and that's fine. He possesses this other guy with a particle beam, right? He wipes out another angel, and he does this, and the forces of hell are going, what the? And the group is just like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? And more forces of good and evil are appearing, angelic and demonic, to stop these guys. And the sword is just so powerful now. And by the way, like I said, I had 13 levels of power. The sword is now at level 13. That's like at level 10, it was like, turn back, kind of thing. And it's like, no, why? And I'm like, I can't believe I let this go so far. That the entire Defilers are going to be wiped off the face of the existence because they're no longer on Earth. I mean, they're in Hades. And I give them a chance to powwow. The Defilers are big into huddling and coming up with a plan. And I'm listening to some of their plans and stuff, and it's like I'm thinking, that's really clever. It won't work. And I hear something else, and it's like, no, that's really clever too. That won't work either. And I'm thinking, that's it. There's no escape. I let them, walk into the proverbial corner from which there's no escape. And Tom Bartold, his second level god, comes up with the master plan. And I'm going to have to tell it for people to for the story to have some resolve. So
yeah,
he could only teleport to a few places,
right?
Dimensionally teleport, and hell was now one of them. And of course the Palladium world, and then the time hole.
Now, wait, before we go any further, you mentioned it several times. Why is it called the time hole?
So it's a time hole because time stops there. You can do stuff, but you never age.
Okay.
It's just sort of this stasis, and it's a whole world. In fact, that's in the. So this is one of the NPCs that's Bunny, and he's reading a book because he's actually an ancient dragon, and he lives in the time hole. And when they had gone there before, they encountered him and had to fight him. And the problem is he got taken there. He doesn't know how, he can't get out for some reason. I forget exactly what the reason was, but he can't leave. He was imprisoned. The time hole was specifically created to imprison him there. And the reason he appears as a bunny is because no one's afraid of a bunny. And so when he's trying to be in disguise or just spy on people or visitors, which he rarely gets in the time hole, they just happen to, some weird flux of stuff happened, and like a half a dozen of them or a dozen of them appeared in the time hole, and they were able to leave, but he couldn't. And they had their thing, and they'd actually gotten a little bit friendly with the dragon. And so Tom says, so I'm going to, because he learned how to teleport, one of his godly powers, as well as dimensional teleport, kind of two different things. He says, I'm going to teleport to where the sword is, grab it, and I'm going to dimensional teleport into the time hole. And then I'm going to try to come back. But for him to dimensional teleport, it took a lot of effort and takes him a couple minutes. And so anyways, he grabs the sword, teleports into the time hole, just him. And, as he does this, someone else in the group says, it might have even been his brother Ken, who played the high priest of Narabium, was like, but he can just possess you and use your powers to come right back. And he goes and brings a sword there, and the sword's like, he's right, I will just... And Tom teleports to where he knows the bunny lives, the dragon. And the sword has no idea where, because it's a pretty big place, this time hole. It's like this forest kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's like a castle and some other shit. And Tom appears, and this is where I love role-playing. I love role players. I love these story elements. Because bear in mind, I thought they were all dead. For me, I'm like,
100%.
I killed my favorite player group, who went on multiple amazing adventures. I'm an idiot. And I love it when players surprise me. So Tom, who I don't know if he thought of it right at that moment or whether this was part of his plan from the beginning, he goes to the dragon, and the dragon's like, hey, buddy, good to see you. He's like, you have to kill me. He's like, no, Observer, I love you. I don't want to kill you. They become really good friends. In fact, when he became a god, he would go and visit him in between game sessions. When a game ended, The guys would be like, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And Tom would say, I'm going to send Absurdra to go hang with the bunny in the time hole because he's so lonely. And so he goes to the dragon and he's like, look, I brought this thing. It's super powerful. It can't be let loose. It's got to stay here forever. You have to kill me. And he's like, kill you? Because yes, because otherwise it'll possess me, and it'll get back, and not just the Palladium world will be a mess, but all kinds of horrors are going to happen, and this is awful. Because what it turns out is the entity inside this sword is the previous Lord of Hades. And he's worse than anything that's ever come after him. He's worse than Asmodee and all these guys. And so once he's in hell and hits his 13th level, and once he's brought before the current Lord of Hell, which is where the group was heading, because that's where
right.
was, because he's one of that guy's lieutenants, he can manifest himself back, and he's more powerful than all of them. He can kill him and take over Hades, and then extract a terrible revenge on humanity and the forces of good and evil, and anyone who was happy that he was no longer the Lord of Hell is going to pay, one of those kind of things. And so it's just going to be horrible, and there's going to be plagues and all kind of terrible things in the Palladium world. And so Tom's like, yes, you have to kill me. And they're like, no, and his sword finds him. He appears and is like, damn you! And Tom grabs the bunny and teleports away to continue the conversation. And they're arguing because the bunny doesn't want to kill him. And I'm just trying to find time to think of, is there some other way out of this? Because obviously I'm the bunny. I'm playing the dragon. And the sword appears a couple of times, and they keep managing to get away. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm an ancient dragon. And I've got psychic abilities, and I've learned other stuff before I got trapped here. I don't have to kill you. I can mind wipe you. And he mind wipes him, so he forgets on how to dimensional teleport. And so the sword appears, and it's like, he possesses Tom, or Absurdra, I should say.
Yeah.
And he's like, what treachery is this? And he lets Absurdra loose, they no longer possessed. And again, beautiful role playing. Tom.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Because the sword is just angry as hell, and it's like, I'm going to kill you both. And Tom says, you can, but then you'll be alone for all eternity. And there's nothing worse than that. You can ask this fellow right here, the dragon. And the sword's like, no, I don't care. And the dragon's like, and Tom's like, but, you'll go even more crazy. Look how mad and how angry and everything that's happened while you were trapped in the sword. This is just a continuation of that. But we can talk and do things and, maybe even become friends. And the sword kind of stops, and it's like, because it's a time hole. Whatever you are now, this is what it is. Nothing changes, so like your hit points don't return and stuff. You're just kind of in this limbo, the stasis, but you're conscious, and you can actually live and move and do things, but you don't age. Nothing changes, but you can do things. And the sword's like, I'll let you live for now. I'll have to ponder this. And meanwhile, the rest of the Defilers are going, this is it, this is the end of the world. And it's like, and the angels and demons are like, hey, they're just gone. And The Defilers are, of course, celebrated as having gotten rid of this horrible thing.
Right.
And they're taken to see the current Lord of Hades, and they're allowed to leave. I mean, and they're not like celebrated as heroes exactly, because I mean they're like, "You stupid,
Yeah.
you know what you guys almost caused," and they're like, "We know, we're sorry." And so they're kind of lambasted and kind of like go, but as they're going, you see the Joker's all smiles and he's getting, gems and presumably soul gems and various things, and he's like, "I knew you guys could do it. I had your back the whole time. I betted on you that you would save the day." And they're like, "Thanks." And it was just great. And then we had like hour and a half, kind of reveal of all kinds of other stuff that happened in the course of the 3.5 year campaign. And
a good postmortem is necessary at the end of a campaign.
Yeah, you really do. And then they wanted to, we met like after that, because they wanted to tell me, they wanted to basically finish off their characters and tell me what their characters would go on to do. So like the guy who played Lord Coke said, "I'm going to create this like legion of holy rangers. They're all champions of Defilers, but they're all rangers, and they go about and do good things, kind of like knights or paladins, except they're rangers of Merabium." And this guy, the one guy went on to become the head of the Thieves Guild and just kind of retired as the head of the Thieves Guild and actually became the leader of the Palladium City now, outside the Palladium Desires. And the Sasquatch went back home to his own time, and they built massive statues and shrines to themselves when they found out. And I apologize, I'm doing a similar history kind of thing with the Glitter Boys, and I talk about this stuff on Legion of Myth sometimes and things too. So I don't remember if I revealed this, but there was a King of Rocks.
Yes, we talked about the King of Rocks.
And so that's when they had built like this. They had already built a year earlier in this big park that was dedicated like the King of Rocks, and he was in the town square and on this pedestal and surrounded by statues of fallen Defilers. And when they found out he wasn't the King of Rocks, it was just a boulder, and that it was the head of the Thieves Guild who was using ventriloquism to pass on information that the Defilers needed, because he was a Defiler.
Yeah.
Without revealing that he was the head of the Thieves Guild. They were like, that was one of the things that I couldn't believe they didn't know that. And they were all like, "What? Oh, we love the King of Rocks."
Love that rock.
So it was epic, and I hope I didn't bore everyone with this story, because I feel like I'm just a gamer telling his favorite.
Oh no, Kevin, we're here for it. I'm sure that we're. And this brings the tale to an end. Like this is the end of the history of the Defilers, and we'll be back to like our regular History of Palladium Books
program.
Yeah, a regular program in 2 weeks. But Kevin, thank you for peeling back the curtain and talking about this. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, my pleasure. I love those guys. I love that campaign. I learned so much during that time and play tested all kinds of ideas and different things. So, yeah, it was epic for me on a lot of different levels. And a bunch of us stayed friends for decades. So it was great.